So last week we talked about what a conic section is, and really what a conic section is if you take a cone, which I'm not a very good drawer here, if you take a conic is a cross section of the cone. So if I took just this top section right here, that would give me a circle. If I took a plane, remember a plane is a rectangular shape. If I took the plane and I cut it straight up and down, I might get a parabola. So the online lesson does a really good job of visually showing you how they take a cone and how they get each conic section on the cone. So if you didn't quite grab that, make sure you go back to 7.01 and review. But our 4 sections are circles, ellipses, which we used to call those ovals when we were younger. Hyperbolas are when we have 2 parabolas, and then a regular parabola. So what we're going to focus on first is we're going to go over the circle equation and try a problem, an ellipse and try a problem, and a hyperbola and try a problem, and we're going to call it a day today. Later this week you'll be starting on parabolas, and we'll cover that at next Monday's session. I just want to give you a chance to read the lesson first, and then next Monday we'll jump in with parabolas. So circles. We learned that the equation for a circle, and this is even back from geometry, we've had it for quite a while now, is x minus h squared plus y minus k quantity squared equals r squared. So what we learned last week is that h comma k is always going to be our center. And then r is your radius. So let's look at our problem here. It says the center of the circle is -8, 2, and the radius of the circle is 9. Which is the equation of the circle? So I'm going to show you your 4 choices in a moment, but what I'd like for you to do first is let's all write a blank equation. So on your paper, I would like you guys to be writing a blank equation with me. And I'm going to highlight the 3 spots that I want you guys filling in with numbers. So on your paper, go ahead and fill in those 3 spots with numbers, and then I will show you your 4 choices in just a second. Okay, so I have changed our polling features right above our name to A, B, C, D. And I'd like for you guys all to pick one of those once I show you your answers. And I'm the only one that can see your responses. So your responses do not show in the recording. They don't show to other students. I'm the only one that can see it. So it's okay to practice. It's okay to make mistakes. All right, so here are your 4 choices. Go ahead and select either A, B, C, or D. Now let's plug in our numbers together. So we said h comma k is our center. So this one's going to be a -8. This one's going to be a 2. So do you guys notice how in blue, I wrote my x minus quantity squared and my y minus quantity squared, and then I just left a blank for my h comma k. See how I did that? That way I'm not going to forget to put in a -8 here and a 2 here. Because we know that when I'm going to get that x minus minus, that's going to turn into a positive. So it's either going to be C or D, because those both have the +8. These both have the -2, but now the question is it 3 or is it 81 over there? Well, it says my r is 9, so that means I'm going to plug in a 9. What's 9 squared? 81. So that would be D. Any questions? Are we okay with how we got that? Yep, so your radius is always r squared. So if they tell you that your r is 9, you just plug in 9 squared. There we go. Excellent. So we get 81. Okay, so now let's talk about how we're going to graph a circle. So this time, notice that I am giving it to you in the graphing form. And we have to kind of pick and choose our numbers out of what they gave us here. So first thing I need to do is I have to start by finding the center. So my center is h comma k. Remember, your h comma k is in here and in here. But do we remember what we talked about last week? how when it comes out of the parentheses, what kind of an H and what kind of a K is it going to be? Can somebody try and type those numbers in for me? If we see a +2, what is your H really? Good job, Lauren and Kiana. Excellent. Jared, perfect. Yep, it's really a -2. And if it says a -4, it's really a +4. Reason being, remember, our formula is y minus k. So that means this number right here, this is your k. Just the 4 is the k. The y minus is the formula. The first one was a little trickier because it wasn't in the minus form. So if I want to make it in the minus form, I'd have to say x minus -2. That's how you would get the -2. But the easiest way to think about these, which I think I was talking to you guys about last week, was if it's in parentheses, just change the sign. If it's in parentheses, just change the sign. That's the easiest way to remember. Now over here, this is my r squared. So what would just plain old r be? If r squared is 16, what's r? Good job, Lauren. My r would be 4. Excellent. Right? So my r squared is 16, because this is always your r squared. So what does that make? Just plain old r? It's the square root of that. So r would be 4. So once I have my center and my radius, you can graph your center. And then from the center, we know in all directions it's going to extend a length of 4, because that's your radius. So in all 4 directions, I can go a length of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You guys get the idea. And there would be your circle if I wasn't able to draw a circle. Not very well, but you guys get where I was going. So there you go. That's how you would graph a circle from the formula. So that was just a quick review of circles. Now we're going to move into ellipses. So you don't need to write all of this down. These were in the notes that I filed transferred with you last week. If you need me to transfer those again later today, I will be happy to do that for you. Let's look over the formula though and see what we noticed about it. So looking at the picture, this says that my major axis is horizontal. What that means is your ellipse is squished, because there used to be ovals, we do them as ovals. When it's squished, the horizontal is the longest side. So meaning side to side is the longest side. Over here, your major axis is vertical. That means your up and down is the longest part of your ellipse. Is everybody okay with that vocabulary? So it says major axis. That just means is it vertical or horizontal? That's the longest part of your ellipse. Okay? Now notice from left to right. Do you guys see the only difference in these two equations? Can you just give me a smiley face if you see the only difference? What is the only difference? Do we see it though? Okay, so the only difference is that it's what it's divided by, right? Here your x is divided by a squared. Here the y is divided by a squared. So here's how I help myself remember. What axis is your horizontal axis, you guys? Which one is your horizontal? Your x. Your a is always going to go with whichever one's longest. So if we're talking about a horizontal, then your a is going to go with the x. If you're talking about vertical, which one would be longer there? Your y, right? Isn't your y-axis your vertical axis? So then your a belongs with your y-axis. So that's where they get these two formulas from. Again, you don't have to have them memorized. You just need to know how to use them. But for now, is everybody okay? If I show you this picture, you could say horizontal. Is that a yes? If I showed you this picture, you would know that that's a horizontal major axis because side to side is longer. Because here's why we need to be able to know. Because if I show you this picture, you have to know to write down that formula. If I show you this picture, you have to know to use this formula. So let's try one. If I show you this picture, everybody in the chat box, is your major axis horizontal or vertical? Can you please type that in for me? Excellent answer. So you guys are absolutely right. So the horizontal is the major axis. There we go. So I'm going to underline the word horizontal. Why is that important? Because it's going to tell us what equation to use. So when I come back to this page, if it's horizontal, I need to use this formula right here. So let me write that formula on our page here. I'm going to say x minus h squared plus y minus k squared So when you identify horizontal or vertical, it's going to tell you which formula to use. There are 3 other things I need to pick out. The first one it's asking me for is I need to pick the center. So when I'm shown a picture, I have to find the center. So if I draw my other axis, then it's pretty easy to see where the center is. So in this case, the center would be at -4, 7. Everybody okay with finding center from a picture? Okay. And then there's 2 other things I need to pick out. I need to pick out my A and my B because this formula down here, one side has an A, one side has a B. A always goes with your longer axis. So A is going to go with your x-axis. A is always from the middle to the outside edge. B is always going to be your short one. So let's count my A. Let's see, how many spaces is A? A is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. We okay with how I did that? You're just counting spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. Let's try my B. B is 1, 2, 3 spaces. You don't need to worry about if you're going up, down, left, right. These are always going to be positive. You know why? Look what we're doing to the numbers. We're just squaring them. So it doesn't matter if it's going up, down, left, right. It doesn't matter because if I squared a negative, it's just going to become a positive anyway. So when you're picking out A and B, just do positive amount of spaces. So all I have to do now is plug my numbers into my formula. So let's highlight what's going to be replaced. My H and K is going to be replaced. My A and B is going to be replaced. Everything else is going to stay put. So here's my H, K. Can you guys write a blank equation with me? Let's leave everything else the same. If you practice writing blank equations, you will not have as many errors with your positives and negatives. So let's try. On top I have my H, and my H is a -4. My K is a 7. My A is a 5, and my B is a 3. Are there any questions about where any of those numbers came from? Now let's just simplify and then we'll be all done. So on top I would get x plus 4 squared divided by 25 plus y minus 7 squared over 9. So, oops, equals 1. Equals 1. There's your formula. So what this unit is going to teach you to do, which it did at the end of last week, is if I give you the picture, you need to be able to write the formula. But if you can go one way, you also have to be able to go the other way. If I give you the formula, can you draw the picture? And the answer is yes. If it was a plus 4 minus 7, we know that that makes the center -4, positive 7. We found this point right here. From this point right here, if the bottom's 25, that means the square root of that's 5. You're going 5 in each direction. If the bottom's 9, it means you're going 3 in both directions. Now you have your ellipse. If you can go one way, you can go the other way. So now I'm going to show you a different set of formulas. Take a peek at these. There's only one difference between an ellipse and a hyperbola. Can somebody point out what that difference is in the formula? Don't worry about the picture right now. What's different about the formula? There's just one thing. Yep, Lauren found it. Anybody else? Okay, I should have said two things. Okay, so there's two things that are different. You guys are right. The first one is that it's a subtraction problem. So our ellipse problem was actually addition, and a hyperbola is a subtraction. So the minute that I show you an equation, you can know if it's an ellipse or a hyperbola based on what's in between the two. Does that make sense? If it's a plus sign in between the two, ellipse. If it's a minus sign in between the two, hyperbola. That's going to be huge. That's going to be huge. They just wrote this slightly differently than the last one. Notice your A is with your X, and over here your A is with your Y. So that's kind of like it was on the last slide too, right? With the ellipse, it switches what variable it's with based on the axis. So here's what your essential question was today. How can you tell if it's a horizontal or a vertical transverse axis? Let's take a peek at my picture. I'm going to actually draw in your two hyperbolas here. So here's a hyperbola. Here's a hyperbola. Here's a hyperbola. Here's a hyperbola. So if I'm looking at my transverse axis right here, the transverse axis touches both of the vertexes or vertices. So if I'm trying to touch each vertex of these parabolas, it has to be a horizontal line. If I'm trying to touch this vertex, like over here, let me just draw in the vertex. Vertex, vertex. What kind of line would touch these two vertices? It would have to be a vertical. So how can you tell if it's a horizontal or vertical transverse axis? It has to go through both vertices. That's how you can tell. Okay, so let me give you a minute to write that down, because that'll be your essential question for your 5 points extra credit today. The transverse axis goes through both vertices. So sometimes that's going to make a horizontal line, sometimes that's going to make a vertical line, and that will tell you which equation to use, if it's horizontal or vertical. Can you guys give me a, oops, let me change your polling, a green check when you have that phrase copied down on your paper and you're ready to go? I'm not trying to trick you to get the 5 points, just making sure you're paying attention. Okay, so what I'm going to do on the next slide is I'm going to show you a picture. It's either going to be like the left-hand side or like the right-hand side. We have to determine what kind of transverse axis does it have. Is it going to have an up and down, meaning a vertical, or is it going to have a horizontal, side to side? And we'll be able to tell by drawing in our two vertices and then seeing what kind of a line connects those two. So let's try. So here is your picture. Your hyperbola are your black lines here and here. So let me ask you, if you're going to draw in your transverse axis, would it be horizontal or vertical? Good job, Lauren. Anybody else want to try? So the first thing you guys need to do when you're looking at the picture is you need to find those two vertices. Where's the vertex of each part of the parabola? See what kind of a line is going to go through those two. So looking at your black line, looking at your black line. Okay, so let me highlight them. If here's my black line, where's the vertex? Right here. Remember what a vertex is, guys, too, from, let me pull up a quick new page. If here's my parabola, isn't my vertex always at the very bottom or at the very top, right? That's what a vertex is. Okay, just reminding you, that's a vertex. What we're going to have now is sometimes they're going to go side to side, and that's okay too. Okay, so, oops, All right, so coming here. If I were to erase all of the picture except this black line right here, where would you pick out your vertex to be? Right here. I know they draw a ton of stuff on these pictures, but I don't want you guys to get lost in what they're showing you. If I'm looking at this black line right here, at this black curve, where's its vertex? Right here. If you're going to draw your transverse axis in, remember what our phrase was on the last page, the transverse axis has to go through both of those pink dots. What kind of line will go through both of the pink dots? That's a horizontal line. Okay, can we add that to our notes real fast? So remember, your transverse axis will go through both of your vertices, and in this case it makes a horizontal line. So let's write down our formula for a horizontal hyperbola, and it's this right here, x minus h squared over a squared minus y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. So from here, our steps are the same. Just like what we did with an ellipse, we're going to do with the hyperbola. So we need to find the center. So the center, in this case, do you guys see how if I didn't have any of these red lines or anything, it'd be really hard to find the center of these two curved shapes. But what they do is by creating this interior box, which the online lesson will walk you through how to do that, by creating this interior box, and finding the lines that go through the diagonals, it finds the exact center for you. So my exact center would be right here, and let's pick out what value that's going to be at. So this value is going to be at -1, 1, 2, 3. Everybody okay how I found the center? It's where the two red lines cross. The red lines are just diagonals in this box. The lesson will teach you how to make that, by the way. So now A. How am I going to figure out A? Well, A is the distance from here to here. That's A. And B is your distance from here to here. And how do I know that? Let's go back to my picture of the horizontal transverse axis. So here's my horizontal transverse axis. It says your A is side to side, your B is up and down. So that's why you just got to keep your pictures handy and use them. You don't have to have it memorized. You just got to keep them handy. So A is side to side, B is up and down. So my A is side to side, so my A would be 1, 2. My B is up and down, my B would be 1, 2, 3. So I get 2 for my A, 3 for my B. We just got to plug and chug. Let's plug some of these in. Always write a blank formula first. It will help you in the long run. So my H was a -1, my K is a 3, my A is a 2, and my B is a 3. So go ahead and simplify that, and let's write our final answer together. So your final simplified answer would be x plus 1's quantity squared divided by 4 minus y minus 3 squared divided by 9 equals 1. And again, if you can go one direction, meaning you can take a picture and go to your formula, we can go the other direction, which is taking a picture and coming back to the picture. So I hope that this was a little bit helpful and gave you guys a little bit of extra practice for what you learned at the end of last week.